Welcome back to the Technocrats. This is the second episode of our three-part series on precision medicine. In our previous episode, we delved into the development and delivery of innovative treatments in precision medicine. Today, we will be taking a deeper dive into this groundbreaking field with a specific focus on strategies for advancing precision medicine, its adoption and accessibility. To guide us through discussions on accessibility, scalability, clinical research, and adoption strategies for precision medicine, we are once again joined by our esteemed guest, Barry Balawat, the CEO of Innovera. With her extensive expertise spanning in the healthcare and life sciences spectrum, including areas like commercialization, medical affairs, and healthcare policy research, Barry is a true luminary in the field of precision medicine. So, Barry, in our last episode, you talked about competitive advantage, how you build the ecosystem, which actually also goes hand in hand how you position your company,
Right.
how you position your product. You talked about targeting and things. Can you elaborate a little bit on the positioning side, how the company should position or how they should actually go about targeting the customers?
Well, I can actually say that kind of goes back to marketing 101 stuff, which is who are going to be the users, who are going to be the influencers, where's your, who's going to pay for it. You've got to understand that basic, ecosystem as well. But where I see the shortfalls is that the companies are, and this is true for marketing in so many cases, the companies are sort of so excited about their innovation that they put blinders on in terms of really, really understanding who their competition is. And they'll only look at competitors who are in a very narrow, direct space. I will give you an example. A company that is in diabetes and weight management, such as Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, etc. What's happened is IQVIA has defined this segment as GLP-1 agonists or inhibitors or whatever. They've said it's the GLP-1 market or the GLP market. And so everybody's looking at who acts on GLP. That's it. That's the market. Well, that's not true. Look at Jardiance. Look at other drugs that are coming or platforms that are coming. Look at AI. Look at self-monitoring. There's a host of other competitive forces that will be very dynamic in the global marketplace that you may have no clue is happening. And you need to look for not the predictable competitors, but the potential disruptors. And those may be technological disruptors. They may be mainstream competitors, but you have to do it. I know all of you, some of you rather, who are academics or remember our master's degrees from Columbia, we were taught the 5 forces, Porter's 5 forces analysis. Well, in pharma, and with life sciences, we have to consider 7. And the 2 that we have to consider in particular is pricing or access. Who's going to pay for these really expensive drugs and these new drugs? Who's going to pay for it? And there is that global trend. Most of the countries that you want to participate in outside of U.S. are going to have national health care. You need to understand that system. U.S. has a very different healthcare system, as we all know, and it works very differently in these other countries. And so you have to understand how does a national payer system work and what do I need to do to make sure that I'm able to compete in that. Then the competition, we look at what AI, Gen AI is doing now, what movements towards trying to prevent more so that you don't get these later stage diseases. Diagnostics, critical. A diagnostic can make or break your precision medicine. I was published on this as well. Companies saying, oh, we've got this new thing, but, it depends on a particular mutation. Well, when you start to go into other countries, are there going to be other mutations that could be confounders? Are there already competitors in that space that you're not even aware of? because they're starting there. China is a good example. So you have to really do your competitive landscape. And you'll learn that the players internationally may not be the players in the U.S. Another area I think that's missed globally, and it speaks to kind of your point that you were making, is who are the medical thought leaders? And how do we get them working together and not competing? Because unlike Big Pharma, in precision medicine, there is a lot of institutional jealousy. You know, they want to capture the value. If they're going to develop precision medicine capabilities, or therapy capabilities, they want to be the referral institution that gets these patients with rare diseases, serious diseases, and they don't want to share that capability. So the medical thought leaders themselves, they don't play nice in the sandbox when it comes to precision medicine.
So that actually brings the other question, like you said, there are actually competition and there are actually the thought that don't do it alone. And that brings to the question is that how these research institutes, the governments, how they can actually work together to maximize on making this precision medicines work globally.
We've seen in the last 2 decades a lot of progress being made by major countries harmonizing regulatory processes. However, they haven't quite caught up with precision medicines. And many countries are what I call a watch and follow country. So we've got Saudi Arabia is a perfect example. They've got as many people with rare diseases in Saudi Arabia as you have in all of America. And so if you're in the rare disease market, you want to be in Saudi Arabia. So you need to understand how does the Saudi FDA review and choose these medicines. And to be frank, a Saudi agency, maybe not Saudi, but yeah, Saudi and others, they're going to say, let's watch what the FDA does, and then either we'll accept that or we'll ask for a modification. But they may not have their own rules figured out. And so we do find this watchful waiting occurring and then watch and follow kind of strategy. However, we are also seeing, and this has been done for many, many years, countries like Japan, Taiwan and Korea, they will require local registration trials. In other words, to say, if all of your research was done in the U.S. and France and Germany, you have to do at least one small proof of efficacy and safety in our population in order to get registration. You need to know that. And so if you can build them into your registration trials and make sure that those local FDAs or ministries of health, regulatory agencies will accept that global protocol and that their patients in that global protocol will satisfy the needs of local registration studies to be done, then that's a win. However, you have to remember that it also makes things more complicated, more expensive. Things could go wrong. The investigators may not be as adept as you think they are. The institutional review boards may not agree with the protocol because it doesn't take into account certain cultural considerations, etc. So all of that has to be kind of anticipated and looked at in advance. So right now, I'd say with precision medicines, we don't have the degree of alignment that we have for more typical chronic therapies. And either it's because they don't have policies around these specific mutations or rare diseases, or they don't have policies for the cell and gene therapies and other precision therapies. They just don't have a regulatory framework for those.
And Barry, you have worked a lot more work in the policy making. Mm-hmm. You were actually part of the advisory committee to White House as well. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, the policy changes or lack of policy in this mm-hmm. case from FDA, mm-hmm. how can we ensure that the patient across the globe can actually have the access to these precision medicine, because there are policy changes happening every time, or there is no policy yet? You actually highlighted in certain countries, or maybe I do not know all the things have been covered by FDA also. I think in precision medicine, they are also doing a lot of catch up to do.
That's right. There's a lot of catch up to do. So I have an algorithm I use called MAGIC. And when I do policy informing research in collaboration with Johns Hopkins or other leading schools of medicine, schools of public health, I always start with MAGIC. Where's the magic? How are we going to make this happen? One thing that people have to understand about policy, unlike research, clinical research, policy may not have the benefit of knowing how this drug is really going to work in its population before it makes policy. And let me give you a perfect example we've all lived through is COVID and COVID vaccinations. Mm-hmm. And, they had to make hard decisions around, do we approve these vaccines or not really knowing what the long-term consequences are, not really knowing how different populations are going to respond to the vaccine and the immunoprotective effects of these vaccines, how long will they last, etc. So policy making is often based on uninformed decision makers because we either lack the data we need to have or we're not doing a good enough job considering the different experiences and viewpoints. So MAGIC means who are the constituents you need to get around the table and you need to reach consensus around what should the policies be going forward and decisions made. And typically when we see failures in policy, it's because that didn't happen. You didn't have all the stakeholders at the table that you needed to have. So who should be the stakeholders? The first, of course, is going to be medical and scientific because you're talking about a new medicine. You're talking about a new science and you need to make sure they're there to explain the science and the need for it. The second will be A. So that's M for MAGIC. A is your academia. You need, whether that's, you can't have precision medicines without academic leaders and research centers and these are the guys who are going to educate and put into place, CME programs and teach, give credits to people to learn how to use these medicines. So you've got to consider your academia and talent development needs. The third is the G, and that's where we get into government. And of course, they're right in the center here, but the government can include your regulatory agencies, your valuations, your NICEs or other pricing authorities who would have to make a decision around reimbursement, and if it's a national healthcare system, of course, other payers. And then, so there's a whole bunch of people in government that may need to get involved. Even with precision medicine, the need for cybersecurity authorities to get involved because of patient privacy data, but the need to really be able to dig deeply into those data. And some countries are very sensitive about anything that's related to genetics or mutations being shared, or again, patient privacy that a family has a particular rare disease. And so these get into all sorts of complicated concerns around privacy and cybersecurity. The fourth is the I, and this is industry. These are the players, the diagnostics, the devices, the hospital and health systems themselves. So these are the industry players that need to be involved in order to bring it to market. And then the last would be the C for the consumer. Remember that a patient is not a patient until they are on medical care. So we prefer to say consumer, maybe consumer/patient. But precision medicines, you may have to get very involved with diagnostics. And again, I've talked about the fact that precision medicines, if they require special diagnostics, you may need to actually be in the diagnostics business and have a diagnostics partner first to create that. And then you've got to create the laboratory standards, and then you've got to make sure path labs have the diagnostics and know when and how to use them, etc. And you don't want to do that. You're not in the diagnostics business. You're in the medicine business, but you have to get involved. And so again, a partnership with a strong diagnostics player who knows how to bring focus on precision medicines. A good one, there's many good ones, but the leaders in these fields of precision diagnostics would be companies like, Illumina, Fisher Scientific, and Centogene, just as some examples. And Quest, of course.
Thank you, Barry. In the second part of our podcast series on precision medicine, we have gathered valuable insights from Barry She has discussed strategies for advancing precision medicine, its adoption, and accessibility. Barry's expertise has shed light on the strategies needed to bridge gaps in the accessibility and promote equitable healthcare solutions. Her insights have paved the way for making precision medicine accessible to all, emphasizing patient-centered approaches, strong infrastructure, and global collaboration. Stay tuned for the final episode of this trio series, where we will delve into the essential aspects of risk and pricing strategies in precision medicine. The journey continues as we explore the delicate balance between safety, affordability, and innovation in this transformative field. Until then, take care and be sure to follow the Technocrats.